Imagine a city so advanced that scholars from across the world traveled there to study science, medicine, philosophy, and mathematics. A city filled with libraries, observatories, and scholars translating the knowledge of ancient civilizations. That city was Baghdad, the heart of one of the greatest empires in Islamic history, the Abbasid Caliphate. For 5 centuries, the Abbasids ruled a vast empire and presided over what historians call the Islamic Golden Age. But how did they rise to power, and what caused their dramatic fall? Before the Abbasids, the Muslim world was ruled by the Umayyad Caliphate, whose capital was in Damascus. The Umayyads had built a massive empire, stretching from Spain to Central Asia. However, many people felt the Umayyad rulers favored Arab elites and neglected other Muslim communities. Opposition to Umayyad rule began to grow. A revolutionary movement emerged in the eastern regions of the empire, particularly in Khorasan. The movement was led by supporters of a new family, claiming descent from the Prophet Muhammad's uncle, Abbas. In 750 CE, their forces defeated the Umayyad army in the Battle of the Zab. Soon after, a new ruler was declared, Caliph Abu al-Abbas al-Safa. The Abbasid era had begun. Unlike the Umayyads, the Abbasids wanted a capital closer to the eastern parts of their empire. In 762 CE, the Caliph al-Mansur founded a new city on the banks of the Tigris River. This city was Baghdad. Baghdad quickly became one of the largest and richest cities in the world. Merchants, travelers, and scholars came from across Africa, Europe, India, and China. The city became a center of trade and intellectual life. At its peak, Baghdad may have had more than 1 million residents, making it one of the biggest cities on earth at the time. One of the greatest achievements of the Abbasid era was its commitment to learning. In Baghdad, scholars gathered in a famous institution known as the House of Wisdom. Here, scholars translated works from Greek, Persian, and Indian civilizations into Arabic. This helped preserve ancient knowledge that might otherwise have been lost. But Abbasid scholars did more than translate. They expanded and transformed knowledge. The mathematician Al-Khwarizmi developed the foundations of algebra. The physician Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna, wrote medical texts that were used in European universities for centuries. The philosopher and theologian Al-Ghazali explored deep questions about faith, reason, and spirituality. During this time, advances were made in medicine, astronomy, engineering, philosophy, mathematics. This period is now called the Islamic Golden Age, and the Abbasid Caliphate was at its center. The Abbasid Caliphate was not just a center of knowledge. It was also a global economic power. Trade routes connected the empire with China, India, Africa, and Europe. Goods like silk, spices, paper, and precious metals moved through Abbasid cities. These connections allowed ideas, cultures, and technologies to spread across continents. Baghdad became one of the most cosmopolitan cities in the world. However, no empire lasts forever. Over time, the Abbasid Caliphate began to weaken. Local rulers in distant provinces gained more independence. Powerful dynasties began ruling parts of the empire, while still recognizing the Abbasid Caliph as a symbolic leader. Political conflicts and internal struggles also weakened the central government. By the 10th century, the Abbasid Caliphs had lost much of their direct political power, yet Baghdad remained an important cultural and intellectual center. In the 13th century, a new threat emerged from the east, the Mongols. Led by Hulagu Khan, the Mongol army advanced toward Baghdad. In 1258, they laid siege to the city in the devastating siege of Baghdad. The city fell. Large parts of Baghdad were destroyed, and many of its libraries and institutions were lost. This event marked the end of Abbasid rule in Baghdad and the end of the classical Islamic Golden Age. Although the Abbasid political empire ended, its legacy continues. The scholars, discoveries, and knowledge produced during this era shaped science, medicine, and philosophy for centuries. Many ideas that influence the modern world today were developed or preserved during the Abbasid Golden Age. The Abbasid Caliphate was more than an empire. It was a civilization of knowledge.